keys are to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. And the 49ers have made a flurry of moves that were to be expected because they have multiple injuries at the running back position. And that means that you're going to have players going on the IR and you're going to have to fill those roles. 49ers were only playing with 3 active running backs: Christian McCaffrey, Jordan Mason, and a rookie Isaac Guerendo. Well, Guerendo just went from the 3rd string running back to the 1st string running back because Christian McCaffrey was officially put on the IR today, ending his regular season per se. He could come back for the regular season finale, but with the PCL injury being a 6-week injury at the earliest, you more than likely couldn't come back unless the 49ers were able to pull off some sort of playoff run, which would be very difficult to do. It's not out of the question. We don't want to count him out, but that is kind of where we're looking. That could have ended Christian McCaffrey's season with an IR stint. So a frustrating season for Christian McCaffrey, and it got a lot more frustrating for the 49ers because Jordan Mason got injured as well, and he's likely to be headed to the IR as well. They haven't done that yet. Evan Givens did go to the IR, so the 49ers have roster space available to add additional players as they see fit. But the running back position got very open real quick. And so the 49ers obviously have Patrick Taylor on the practice squad. They could keep him there, elevate him for games. That's always a possibility. Or they can add him to the active roster. Well, while they were waiting for that to happen, they put in a claim. And they don't normally put in claims for players during the season. And normally they're so high up with their schedule being so good and having so many wins, they're usually one of the last teams that can possibly claim a player. But here they are sitting in a situation where they could put in a claim and have a good opportunity to get him, and they did. The 49ers claimed running back Israel Abanikanda, and you're going to hear a lot of pronunciations on his name, but it is Abanikanda, and Izzy is what he normally goes by. So for all you fans, you can call him Izzy, and that'll make it a lot easier for you. But Abanikanda has been a player that I've liked a lot in the draft process in 2023. In fact, he was one of my favorite running backs coming out. But when he went to the New York Jets in the 5th round, it made a lot of sense. He fit the scheme. They ran a very similar offensive scheme to what San Francisco did with the zone concepts and then the gap scheme coupled with that. So he's a direct fit for what the 49ers want to do on offense. And I want to get really into Abanikanda so everyone understands what player we're getting. But the 49ers are not done filling the running back role. We talked about that earlier. Patrick Taylor is probably going to be added in some stretch of the imagination. Well, the 49ers also added Keyshawn Vaughn back to the practice squad. That's what makes me think that Patrick Taylor is going to go to the active 53-man roster. And the 49ers will likely have Guerendo, Abanikanda, and Patrick Taylor, a young running back room behind Brock Purdy. That looks like it's going to be the room. Now, that's not for sure. The decision hasn't been made on Patrick Taylor yet. They did add Keyshawn Vaughn, who's been with the 49ers throughout training camp, and then on the practice squad most of the season until they waived Patrick Taylor. Once he cleared waivers, then they put him on the practice squad and went ahead and cut Keyshawn Vaughn. So those are some options. We talked about some veteran options as well last night. A guy like Matt Breida was a potential player they could add as well. They had him in camp during training camp, did not go that direction. So 49ers are going to make some more moves. Those are still to come. They did make some other moves, and we'll talk about those in just a second. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I really appreciate it. If you're listening audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network, please give it a 5-star rating. And if you're going to bet with Bet Online. Bet Online continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, Bet Online provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. with the largest selection of odds on everything from football, the NBA, and college basketball to NHL and UFC. Head to Bet Online today, and don't forget to use the promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, the game starts here. So let's talk about Israel Abanikanda. He played at Pittsburgh, and he's only 22 years old. So this is a guy that's actually younger than Isaac Guerendo that you're getting, who's been in the league for a couple of years. He hasn't had a lot of opportunities with the New York Jets. Of course, the Jets had Breece Hall. Then last year they brought in Dalvin Cook as they went with kind of older veterans with Aaron Rodgers. This year they drafted Braylon Allen, and they have him on the roster as well. So they've got a talented running back room, and there wasn't opportunities for Abanikanda within the Jets offense. So when he got put on waivers this week, as the Jets start to transition away from what was going on before and the additions of the older players to a probably new look, new offense, new defensive scheme, everything will probably change next season. They're going ahead and moving on from some of the players they don't feel have a future there. So here comes Abanikanda, who has a really good skill set and the possibility to become a big player. Young guy, still developmental. Makes sense for the 49ers to claim him. He's very cheap. Get him into your organization, see what he can do to help your football team, but also evaluate him for the future because you do have decisions to make. Christian McCaffrey, of course, will be back next season. That's going to happen for sure. But Jordan Mason is going to be a restricted free agent. What decision do you make there? Do you decide to pay Jordan Mason? Would a team be willing to give up a second-round pick for Jordan Mason if you put a second-round tender on him? Possibly. But do you want to pay your running back to $4.5, close to $5 million? Probably not. So we'll see what the 49ers do with Jordan Mason. I think there are a lot of avenues that could be there, from them trading him to other things. I think in a perfect world, they'd love to keep him, but we'll see what happens. So getting young players like Isaac Guerendo and a guy like Israel Abanikanda could give you an opportunity to kind of build your team moving forward, but they get to evaluate him this year within their offense, within their organization. And if he's not that guy, well, then you move on. But it's nice picking up a young player. Abanikanda is 5'10", 216 pounds, and he played at Pitt. This is a guy that's built. He's got a lot of upper body strength, but he well put together at that size. He can pack a little bit of a punch. He runs a 4.45 40. Couldn't get that one out. He definitely runs faster than I was able to spit that one out. But he did a really good job in college, and he was a big fan of mine. Part of the reason he was a big fan of mine was his ability to be a slasher, read holes, good vision, get downhill, very much fit the 49ers scheme. He rushed for 1,431 yards in his junior season, including 20 touchdowns for the Pittsburgh Panthers. And so you're seeing a player that's got a lot of ability. Now, the change of direction, those types of things weren't really that great when you're talking about three cone and you're talking, about some of the other things like the shuttle. Those weren't very big. But when you talk about explosive traits, we talked about the 4.45. Well, how about this as well? His 41-inch vertical leap was fantastic, and his broad jump was 128, which is 95 percentile for running backs coming out of the draft that year. So you can see the explosiveness, and he's a long strider. So he's a guy that can really stretch things out, has the ability to take it to the house, 76-yard plus touchdowns, something that Abanikanda can definitely do. So we talked about him being young. So he's still got a lot of tread on the tires, only played just over 70 snaps in his time with the Jets, which means he hasn't had very many opportunities, and he hasn't proven that he needed to get more opportunities. So this is a guy that's still a prove-it kind of player. So let's talk about some of the things that he does really well. I talked about with his size, the fact that he likes to bounce off and be able to break loose from tackles. That's something he does really well. He also falls forward. So I'm going through my draft profile of what I broke him down in 2023, just so you guys know. The guy is definitely a guy that can get to the corner. He's got the flexibility in the lower half of his body to be able to turn the corner and get upfield vertically. So he fits the 49ers scheme. Outside zone, toss plays, those are definitely things he can do. Falling forward after contact, That's huge. He's also a patient runner. And sometimes within this offense, you have to be patient. You have to let things develop. You can't give up on them early, or you will potentially miss a big run and get a short gain because of your patience. He does that. And so he lets his blocks develop, and then he accelerates at a high rate of speed. He also runs with a forward lean, which helps him when it comes to falling forward and breaking contact when he moves forward. This isn't a guy that's going to be Garendo, straight line speed, outrun everybody, but he's got enough speed. He's got enough speed and more speed than some of the other guys the 49ers have right now. A guy like Patrick Taylor, he's got more speed than that. So enough speed for him to be able to be explosive with this offense, and he's a guy that can do a lot when it comes to reading blocks and being able to create and get some extra yardage. So that's what I really like. He is also a good blocker, which means he can help as well when it comes to blocking on the edge. So you got opportunities in the screen game. You want to motion him out. He can handle that. So you're getting a little bit of that aggressive style. He plays with physicality as a blocker. It wasn't used a lot as a receiver, but that is something that he can do as well. He is dangerous in catch and run situations, and he has the ability that if you get a matchup with him on a linebacker, he can win, and he can take the top off the defense in that way. So those are some of the things to really like about Abanikanda. Now, it hasn't developed to the level that I think everyone was hoping it was going to be in New York, but now the 49ers have an opportunity. And I'm going to be clear, this was really a draft crush for me in 2023. All of my family had to see the videos of Abanikanda. Everyone that I know loves football. I talked Abanikanda up. So I got text messages when the 49ers claimed Abanikanda and said, hey, and isn't this your guy? And it's like, yeah, that's my guy. So I am a huge fan of him, and we'll see. It may work out with San Francisco. It may not. But I got to admit, I am excited about this, and a lot more excited than I was with potentially Patrick Taylor and then one of those other guys. I love that we got a young guy that's got some potential there. So there are some things that, you're going to see from Abanikanda that aren't really great that he's going to have to work on. I think one of those is, how much can he help in the passing game? We haven't seen him do it significantly enough through college or definitely his time in the Jets. That is something that's going to have to get better. And then we're going to have to see what he does when it comes to blitz pickup. He's not a guy, even though he's a good blocker, he's not a guy that can normally hold up against a blitzing linebacker. He's going to have to go down low and take him out. So that's something that he's going to have to prove he can do, is when it comes to pass protection, be really good there. But he only had 12 catches for 146 yards in his time with the Pitt Panthers. So he's definitely not been used as much in the passing game as I feel like he will be used in San Francisco. But I love this pickup overall. I think it's a really good thing to see, and I'm a fan of Israel Abanikanda, and I'm glad the 49ers picked him up, because with some of the alternatives that we talked about, I think this is one of the better opportunities for the 49ers. So McCaffrey goes on the IR with the PCL. They go ahead and claim Israel Abanikanda off waivers from the Jets. And then Jordan Mason will probably go on the IR in the coming days because of the high ankle sprain that's bugging him. Now, 49ers also did something else on the practice squad. We talked about them bringing back Keyshawn Vaughn. It's not official yet, as they're going to be making some moves, but that is going to happen. That is being reported by Tom Pelissero that he's going to be coming back. But the 49ers also signed wide receiver Ronnie Bell. So Bell, just like a lot of people thought, he would have cleared waivers the entire time, and he did in this case. And the 49ers were able to bring him back to the practice squad. And I think that, getting him back to the practice squad is something they wanted. But a lot of teams weren't exactly very willing to take on Ronnie Bell. So I think that gives us kind of a clear picture on where he's at. So the 49ers, make a move at running back, and it feels like they still got some moves left in them. They've got some positions where they're going to have some players that they're going to have to make some decisions on. Now, we know that there is a likelihood that Deommodore Lenoir is going to practice tomorrow on Wednesday. Deommodore Lenoir should come back to practice. That's a huge addition. It'll be the first time in a long time that the 49ers will have their top three cornerbacks out on the field together. Charvarius Ward, Deommodore Lenoir, and Renardo Green. That hasn't happened in a while, and it's been one reason or another. And of course, Mooney had some personal things, and we all definitely understand that. But now he's back, and he had his first game in a tough situation against Buffalo. I don't think it was a bad game. I also don't think it was his best game that he's played so far, but he'll be rounding into form as he starts to get out there on the field, and they need him to do a good job against a talented Chicago Bears team. So the 49ers get a little bit stronger there. Also, Dre Greenlaw goes into week 2 of his work back to getting to the roster. Now, this has been a week that has been targeted for the 49ers to potentially bring back Dre Greenlaw. There is a chance that Dre Greenlaw could be activated off the PUP list this week. If that happens, that would be a huge addition for the 49ers and the first time that we could see a linebacker core of Dre Greenlaw, Fred Warner, and Devondre Campbell. Now, it does not mean Dre would play every single snap. In fact, I think there's a likelihood that they would ease him back in, but potentially having his athleticism out on the field against Chicago when you're going to be playing a tight end like Cole Kmet and you're going to be playing a quarterback that can move the way Caleb Williams can move could be a huge addition for the 49ers. So that's something to monitor. So you're looking at the cornerback position getting strengthened by Demo coming back, potentially the linebacker room getting a little bit better and a little bit stronger with Dre Greenlaw returning to the lineup. Now, another position that could see it bolstered, and I talked about this last night, is the defensive line. Even though Kevin Givens is going on the IR with the torn pectoral, you could be getting Jordan Elliott back this week from concussion protocol. With Jordan Elliott coming back, you get your starting defensive tackle next to Malik Collins, and that makes Evan Anderson go back to the rotation with Evan Anderson, Kalia Davis, and Khalil Davis being your rotational pieces at defensive tackle. That could strengthen the 49ers interior defensive line a little bit from what it was last week when Evan Anderson started the football game. And it's not like Evan Anderson doesn't play well. He's played pretty well, but there is a difference between Jordan Elliott and part of the rotation. Now, the real thing would have been real strength if they would add Kevin Givens too. Missing Kevin Givens, once again, means they're not going to be as strong as they could have been, which is very frustrating for the 49ers. But you're seeing reinforcements on the D-line, potentially a linebacker and at cornerback and even at safety, where the 49ers are going to open up the 21-day practice window for Talanoa Hufanga. Now, he will either have a cast or some sort of a brace on his wrist, but how quickly will the 49ers bring him back? Would it be this week against Chicago? Probably unlikely. Now, with him having a hand injury, there's probably a good chance he's in good shape. So we'll see what that looks like during the week. But also, what happens the week after where they play the Los Angeles Rams? I think that's when they really want to be full strength and ready to roll, knowing that they have to win at Chicago. They have to win at home versus Chicago, win at home versus the Los Angeles Rams, and get back to 500 if they can have any sort of conversation about winning the NFC West, which is their only pathway to making it to the playoffs. Not out of the question yet. It's definitely on the more difficult side, but they've got a potential, and that's why you see them bringing these players back and being willing to take some of these guys and put them out there on the field. So it's going to be interesting on the defensive side of the ball to see what the makeup of this defense looks like against Chicago and against Los Angeles. And I'm guessing they're expecting all of those guys to be full go when they play the Miami Dolphins in a few weeks. But they can't wait. They can't take time to wait. And so we see the position groups for the 49ers defense getting a little bit better. On the offensive side of the ball, I think there's going to be a real conversation this week about what happens at left guard. We know that right now it looks like left tackle is going to be Jalen Moore, at least for the foreseeable future. Coach Kyle Shanahan said that Trent Williams' ankle has not been responding to rehabilitation the way that they expected it to. So that signals to me that this thing is far from being resolved about him coming back from injury. Now, he's dealing with some personal things in his life. I don't know how that's going to affect his mindset or when he comes back to the football team. But the same way that we supported and wanted Charvarius Ward to take as much time as he needs, that is the same thought process we're going to have for Trent Williams. I can't imagine what he's going through. It's one of the most horrific things that a person has to deal with, the loss of a child, and that's unfortunate. So for Trent Williams, it's going to be Jalen Moore. But just going back and watching the last part of the Green Bay Packers game when Aaron Banks suffered the concussion and Ben Bartch stepped in his place. And then watching what happened against Buffalo, it looks like Ben Bartch is playing really good football right now. Now, I don't know, and I've heard a lot of people saying, hey, Ben Bartch should be the starting left guard. I'm not sure that he's done enough to overtake Aaron Banks right now. So my thought process is if Aaron Banks is healthy enough to play on Sunday, he will play. If he's cleared of concussion protocol, he will be the 49ers left guard moving forward. And why do I say that? Well, Ben Bartch looked good against Green Bay, but the game that he played against the Buffalo Bills, I don't know how much you can take from that game and say, oh, yeah, this is a really good football play. This is just a guy that completely dominated. And I can't say that for the mere fact that these defensive tackles are moving differently in the snow. Some of the things that they were not able to do, not able to get off, not able to get a push, it was definitely noticeable. Now, I did think Ben Bartch tied things together really well. I love the upper body and lower body together, being able to get in position and make key blocks. He did make good second-level blocks, which I was a big fan of. So I don't want to get it twisted. I was a huge fan of the film from Ben Bartch. In fact, this is the best that I've seen Ben Bartch look his entirety of the time he's been in San Francisco. And we know that last year he was dealing with an injury that he was overcoming. This season in training camp, it was hit and miss. I mean, Nick Zakelj was out playing Ben Bartch at center for sure. At left guard, I always thought Bartch outplayed Nick Zakelj, which was interesting. At center, Zakelj was better, and at guard, it was Ben Bartch. And I think we've seen that continue. So the expectation, I believe, is for Banks to still start. Now, I would not be opposed to seeing what the 49ers have done before and potentially finding some opportunities for Ben Bartch to play left guard and give Aaron Banks some time off. We've seen the 49ers kind of employ this type of thing a couple years ago with Spencer Burford and Daniel Brunskill. Now, I'm not sure I would alternate drives the way they did with Burford and Brunskill, but I think that maybe giving him, a series, like, Aaron Banks 3 series, 1 series for Ben Bartch, I think I would like that rotation a little bit because with Banks, it would help him stay a little bit fresher, but he's just not moving as good. That calf injury is definitely playing a part in his inability to consistently make the blocks that he needs to make. His lower half does not follow his upper half when he's going to make his blocks. So he can't get his hips around. He can't get his body between the man and the hole. And a lot of times those linebackers are too nimble and they actually work around him and are able to get to the ball carrier anyway. So I thought the run game was definitely more successful with a more athletic Ben Bartch in the game against Buffalo. And I thought there was some good consistency from him. So an opportunity to see how Ben Bartch plays, it could go a long way. Plus, I know a lot of people probably don't want to hear this, but the 49ers could evaluate Ben Bartch to be the eventual starting left guard next season for the San Francisco 49ers. They've turned away from Spencer Burford playing left guard and went with Bartch. And so maybe that would be the avenue they go. They feel comfortable with Dominic Purdy at right guard. Now they need to find the left guard of the future. A lot of people don't want it to be anyone that's currently on this roster. They want to get better at right tackle, center, and left guard, which I think is always the methodology that the coaching staff and the front office should be looking to do, is improve at every position you can. So 49ers, I'm sure, will address that position when it comes to the draft, but I think they're still high on Ben Bartch. We know that he's been a guy that Chris Foerster really likes, and they've been high on Spencer Burford. So a couple of guys still in the mix, but don't be surprised to see Aaron Banks back starting, and let's see, maybe we'll get a rotation, but I think Banks is going to have a real opportunity to help this football team when he gets back. But that's on the waiting game. We don't know exactly when they're going to clear concussion protocol. The good news is we're on week 2, and usually we see guys start to get cleared. It's tough to make it on a 7-day window. If you have a Monday night, sometimes that'll help the extra day. You'll be able to get cleared. It didn't happen for Banks or Jordan Elliott, but you can't rush these things, and there's no way to make it speed up. You just have to let it work and let it happen before you can come back. So Banks could be ready, and that would be big for the 49ers. They need that to happen. And when it comes to, play on the field, I heard a lot of conversation this week about Brock Purdy and just not looking good. And I will say this, going back and breaking down the film, which is available over on Patreon, if you want to check out the game film, I break down every play, what formationally the 49ers are doing, how Kyle Shanahan's attacking, every little nuance that I have from the coaching points. But also, I think it's just a good opportunity to kind of look and see, hey, was this a Brock Purdy problem? Was this an elements problem? What exactly happened in this football game? And one thing that was very clear from watching both teams is it was extremely difficult for both wide receiver cores to be able to create separation and get open. And I thought that it definitely limited the 49ers' effectiveness. There was a lot of times that the wide receivers or tight ends just couldn't get open because they couldn't move the way they normally do. Matchups you would normally like for George Kittle didn't work out as well because people just can't move as much. And I think that played a big part in this football game. I know that a lot of people are talking about Brock Purdy not being able to play in the elements. And yes, he did have the open hand fumble. That was not good. But I thought for the most part, the ball came out of his hands pretty well when he did throw it. I didn't feel like the elements manipulated his throwing as much as it did in other games where we've seen him struggle against Seattle and struggle early against Green Bay last year in the playoffs. I thought that the wet ball and the rain ball was definitely different for Brock Purdy than the snowball. But this is one of those things. You're going to have mistakes, but how often is Brock Purdy going to play in the elements? This is one of those key factors is, yes, it could cost you a game or two, and you're hoping it never happens when you get into January and February football. You never want the elements to play into it. But are you going to be able to, are you just going to throw out a player because he might struggle for 1 or 2 games a season, potentially, instead of what he does the other 15 games? And I don't think that is a factor. So to me, I think that it's always something that's troubling when you're talking about Brock Purdy struggling in weather. You want your quarterback to be Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, that are able to thrive with the big arm and the ability to beat wind and the big hands that are able to handle the ball in the rain and in the snow and the ability to have great balance the whole time. But that's not in the cards for every player. Those aren't the things that work for Brock Purdy, and those aren't the things that work for other quarterbacks as well. There are key elements to Brock Purdy's game that other guys can't do, and I thought that those were limited very greatly. You throw with anticipation. You're a quarterback that's all about timing and all about getting the ball into the right spot, and then all of a sudden your timing is thrown off because receivers are slipping. They can't get in and out of their breaks as consistently. It just makes things a little bit more difficult for your football team, and I thought that was on display for sure. So there's going to have to be some adjustments. They're going to have to play a lot better if they want to beat the Chicago Bears, and now they're going to have to do it without Christian McCaffrey, who I thought was having his best football game of the season against the Buffalo Bills. In fact, that run game looked really good. McCaffrey was the best running back for the 49ers in that football game. Jordan Mason did really well as well. Neither one of those guys are going to be a part of the season moving forward. And it's going to be about Isaac Guerendo, the young guy. Let's see what he's got. A former 5th-round pick who the 49ers just claimed, Israel Abanikanda. Those guys are going to be getting an opportunity. How quickly can Abanikanda adjust to the 49ers offense? Being in a similar system with New York, you would think that some of the verbiage is going to be similar, and the 49ers can help Abanikanda figure this thing out quickly because he's going to be a part of the 53-man roster, which means he's going to be expected to help this football team right away. So big news for the 49ers. They get Israel Abanikanda to replace Christian McCaffrey and Jordan Mason, which, boy, you're never going to be able to do that. But it's at least exciting to see a young player get an opportunity. And let's see what the 49ers can do against Chicago. If the 49ers can get out there and defeat the Chicago Bears, and the Arizona Cardinals can defeat the Seattle Seahawks, the 49ers are still in the mix in the NFC West. But it is really dark out there. There's a glimmer of sunlight for an opportunity for the 49ers, but it's not easy. But the cool thing is we're going to get to evaluate a very young player in Abanikanda. We're probably going to get a good look over the next couple weeks at Drake Greenlaw, see how well he is and how good he is back from the Achilles. The 49ers can make a decision on him in the offseason, whether to try to bring him back or not. Same with Tauno Hufanga. So the 49ers have evaluations that they're going to be doing, but also they're going to be trying to win football games. There's no quit in these guys. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm very excited about Israel Abanikanda coming to San Francisco, and we'll see what Izzy's able to do on the field. And if that what we saw at Pitt translates to the NFL game, didn't do it with the Jets, Can he do it with the 49ers? Well, if you can't run in Kyle Shanahan's offense, you might not be able to run successfully around the league. Thanks, guys, for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Listening audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network. Please give it a 5-star rating. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online. The game starts here. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Until then, stay safe. Remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.